have a couple of guests who have volunteered to share their me statement today.
Thank you, Renee. My name is Laura Leonard, and I'm seeking a position in healthcare management and or grant writing. I've managed healthcare programs and written grants for nonprofits and for governmental agencies. As a manager, I've operationalized programs to increase revenue from between 10 to 50%, and through my grant writing expertise, I've raised over $1.8 million from federal, foundation, state, and local sources, increasing the federal funding base by 50% for a California-based nonprofit health center. I'm very interested in discussing your grant writing management position. Again, my name is Laura Leonard, and I look forward to talking to you next week.
And we're talking about the importance of having a good me statement, or the answer to that question, tell me about yourself. It's also called an elevator pitch or a value proposition. And one of the most important things to do when you're preparing to answer this question is to know what your accomplishments are and to be able to talk about how you made a difference, saved money, made money, whatever the impact was that you made on your company as a result of the work that you did. We call that the so what factor. And you were sharing an example that was really impactful. Tell us a little bit about the Shirley example.
She was in a call center, and she was one of 17 people in there that the responsibility was to answer the phone lines when somebody had an issue or a complaint. Well, the problem was that for them to put their hands on any one file took them anywhere from 25 to 40 minutes per file. Now, amateurize that by 17 other people. So initially, Shirley couldn't, she really struggled with, I have no idea what my accomplishment would be. I got to work, did my job, wrapped it up, got home, had dinner, went to bed, got up the next morning, did it again. So we sat down with her and said, let's go back to this filing system problem. And we sat down with her and figured out, okay, Shirley, how much are you making per hour? Well, it was X amount of money. Now let's time that by 17 other people who are working there. And let's figure out times the 30 to 40 minutes it takes to put their hands on one file. What do you think was the lost revenue there? And she goes, I have no idea, but it was a lot. It just took so long to find it. And I said, well, why was that? And she said, because we really didn't have a filing system. We had a file cabinet. But when we were finished with files, they were thrown on top of the file cabinet. So it had not been utilized at all. So she decided to take it upon herself to come up with a very simple filing system that anybody could put their hands on the file like within about, 10 seconds. So we figured out, I think you and I put pencil to paper at that point and figured she saved that company $8,000 in a year all by her little self.
See how even things that seem relatively minor, like redoing a filing system, can have a huge impact when you're talking about how often those files get accessed and how much productive time it wastes when people can't put their hands on what they need, and what the impact that might have on the customers too, when they have to wait for you to get back to them for 40 minutes, or maybe it's even another 24 hours before you get back to them. So those are huge kinds of contributions, and when you can be conscious of it and convey that to an employer, that's really important. I thought of another example. A client named Rick had been a production manager, and Rick told me when we were working on his resume that he had implemented a very creative and unique employee safety program that included some activities in the morning. It included some awareness of safety techniques and things like that. It was so unique and so impactful that in this particular production floor, he reduced, in fact, eliminated industrial accidents. Now think about
by 100%.
100%. He entirely eliminated industrial accidents. So think about the cost savings in terms of insurance premiums, lost time on the job, lost productivity, all of that. We sat down and estimated. I mean, we can't know exactly, but we sat down and estimated based on what we figured were routine premiums for a manufacturing company, and he saved more than millions for that company over the period of time that he worked there by implementing this specific program. So think hard about how you've made a difference. And it's not always about money. Sometimes it's about saving a customer that might have walked away, or maybe it's about improving morale. All of those things can make just such a huge difference.
It's really about combining action words along with accomplishments or result-driven kinds of statements that really demonstrate the kind of impact that you had on the work that you did. And, you know, with everything else that you're going to say during this me statement, it all should lead up to these accomplishment or result-driven statements or impact statements.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of other examples here might be something like I wrote proposals for a company safety plan, which would be in compliance with OSHA regulations. So the action word here would be wrote proposals, and the accomplishment or the result statement or impact was that it was in compliance with OSHA regulations, which would be very important because if you didn't do that, you'd be paying a whole lot of fines, right?
Yeah, or they could shut you down.
Or they could shut you down. Yeah, worst case scenario. Another example might be I plan to prepare daily meals, meeting state dietary and nutritional guidelines. You know, if you were in charge of that activity for a school district, hospital, prison system, and so on, it would be very important that you held to the dietary standards. Otherwise, again, you might have similar results to the last example that we gave. and then that reorganizing the office filing system like Shirley did, you know, I mean, just really dig deep and figure out, you know, what was it that I had such a positive influence on in the work that I did.
You know, a lot of times when I sit down with people to help them figure this out, they'll say, I don't know, I just went to work and I did my job. But after we've had this kind of conversation, I often hear people say to me, you know, from now on, I'm going to start keeping records. Think about keeping records on the job. Keep a record maybe every 3 months, sit down and write down what have you accomplished and how did it impact or make a difference.